this, and so what we are going to do here is talk a little bit about the research circle that I use in doing academic work in philosophy. I wrote a blog post about a year ago with a kind of dream scenario of what I hoped would be possible with regard to research, moving from looking for citations to annotating them to writing with them, citing them in a word processor, and hoping that this all could be done in an easy way with maybe even one product, but that's not possible yet, at least the way that I work. And so what this story is about is really about the process that I go through. My name is Christopher Long, and my goal here is to make Matt Myers completely sick with my Prezi presentation. So, if you have Dramamine, you might want to take it now. We'll see about this. And one of the great things that I've had the opportunity to do this summer is have an awesome undergraduate research assistant, named Lisa. So Lisa, you can tell them about yourself.
My name is Lisa Latito. I am a history major and a Middle East Studies minor, and I'll be graduating this fall.
The Turner Fellow?
Yeah.
Turner Fellow, yeah, you mentioned that. So Lisa's been great, and I've been really, one of the things that's important about the circle that I'm going to talk about is to have a research assistant who is comfortable with the digital world and is able to create shared collections and communicate on Twitter and go back and forth with different kinds of citation programs, because as you'll see, we're not using one single citation program to do some of this stuff. So let's talk a little bit about the first stage, which is the kind of gathering stage. We use Mendeley for gathering for the most part, although I would say that the Zotero plugin on Firefox is awesome for pulling citations down into a database, especially since the library has now operates with Zotero. So that was a big frustration for about 6 or 8 months when I was using Zotero and finding great things in the cat, but not able to download them right into my database. But we can do that now. So the Mendeley works well for that. As Lisa has set up, I asked Lisa to set up this share group. This is what it kind of looks like in the web browser, and this is what the share group looks like in the desktop version. And Zotero does not have a desktop version at the moment. I think they're coming out with one at some point. But one of the things I like about Mendeley is that it lives on my desktop and it syncs between my various computers at work and at home. It also has a light version of an iPad app and a iPhone app, but they're still, I think, a little bit half-baked at the moment. So then the next phase is kind of this phase is getting PDF files into the Mendeley shared collection. So maybe you could say a word or two about that kind of process.
Sure. So we use Lion Search a lot to look for various PDFs. And it was very easy to import into Mendeley. But for other articles that we had to get either through interlibrary loan and needed to be scanned from books into PDF, we used Adobe to OCR them, and that stands for optical, yes. And then after we did that, imported them into Mendeley.
Yeah, so this is what it looks like. Now, you get there's a little bit of prep work that has to be done on the PDF side, and Lisa was getting very good at doing that very quickly. We would have conversations about the research that I'm doing, what kinds of things I'm looking for, and she, as she would find things, she would populate the Mendeley shared collection with the PDF file, having been prepared so that it could be one of the reasons you do the OCR is so that you can annotate those documents relatively well. But you get a hit and miss. You order stuff through Library Loan, or you order, if you photocopy a chapter from a book or something, the OCR is often kind of kludgy, and so that's still an issue. What you don't see here, I think, up in this section is these are, it says LL there for Lisa Latito. So what she did, maybe you could talk a little bit about it.
So once the PDFs were in Mendeley, a lot of my note-taking was in the abstract. So I just gave Chris a 2-sentence summary of the article pertaining to what he was looking for with his research. And also in the notes section up at the top, not under details, but there was a new panel, and I just would put page numbers and quotes, and also other references within the article, within footnotes, for other sources that we should look at.
So that was really helpful. I mean, since taking on my role as Associate Dean for Undergraduate Studies, to be able to have the things I need when I need them with the hour and a half I had to work on my scholarship, and not to have to at that point go and line search, or begin to download things into a collection, that was huge. And the added benefit of Lisa's notes, which were really always very helpful, and to summarize certain things, I could pretty easily, quickly find, okay, this is an article I need to spend more time on and do a lot more work on and engage more seriously. This is an article I need to sort of know what it's about and maybe reference it in some ways, but I don't need to read it in the kind of detail I might otherwise. We save all this stuff to Dropbox through Mendeley. So Mendeley is really awesome for the managing of the PDF files. That's why we're really using it. This is the sort of site that they all go to. Dropbox, you can set, Mendeley, you can set the name it, the convention with the last name and the date and the name of the article, and as long as your information in the collection is right, it will get this right. The beauty of doing it to Dropbox, from my perspective, is that now I can have it in all kinds of different. I have every PDF file right here on the phone, and if I wanted to do some research right now, I didn't have a bunch of people watching me. Would not make for a very interesting presentation, but we could do that. So it goes into Dropbox, and then I move to the annotating phase. Now, Mendeley has an annotating aspect to it. But in all of their brilliance, they don't make their annotations compatible with Adobe and other normal annotating programs. So I couldn't buy into that whole aspect. So for the annotation, I would either use Adobe to annotate right there on the desktop, or Goodreader on the iPad. And then there's space for notes in Mendeley too, as Lisa said. But because I'm not yet really willing to just say Mendeley is going to be the one that I use, I go into, I put my notes in EndNote, which are also synced to the cloud, and so that's another dimension of this, which has turned out to be good for me because I can search it and do all those sorts of things. The disadvantage is that Mendeley has a very powerful search feature that will search not only the contents of the PDF files, but the contents of your notes and the tags and everything else. So that's something you kind of lose by bringing this out into EndNote. But I'm so tuned into EndNote now that I can't.
I'm sorry, isn't
sorry,
it? Okay, yeah. Evernote.
Replace EndNote with Evernote. This is Evernote. This is all Evernote. I was an EndNote user years back, and now I don't think I can go back there. So this is Evernote, which is awesome. I keep a lot of my notes in there, and then the Goodreader for the iPad is awesome because that will save. That is compatible annotations with Adobe and the standards that you need for annotation. So if you do open it up, then in the desktop in Adobe, it comes through.
What's that called again?
This is called Goodreader. It's an iPad app. I'll write a little blog post with this and have all the links. So that's Goodreader and Evernote, and that's what I use for annotating. Now, one of the things that happens is as you read, you get new ideas. Well, we did a lot of the tweeting back and forth, direct message tweeting. Once we got the kinks worked out, we did some public tweeting about. A lot of people found out that we were doing some Plato research. But what was great was that when things would come up, I would tweet Lisa, and she would be able to tweet me back. Here's just a snippet of a conversation we had during the writing process, where I was sort of working on a specific part of the dialogue, and Lisa was great here with giving actually page references to articles that we had read. So one of the things that's nice about this collaborative process is that, I do admit to forgetting some things that where did I read that, and I could tweet Lisa. Did you want to say anything about our?
Yeah. Sure. Well, Twitter was really helpful because as Chris was reading, he would give me new ideas about directions for reading the sources. So I may have been going in one direction and reading for things about Oedipus, and then he would change direction and say, well, can you look at this article instead and look for something about Theseus or something? And I would go back and renote it.
Right.
So it really allowed for a dialogue and a more, a faster exchange.
And what was, for me, is important, as it probably happens for you, these ideas come at you, when you're walking home from work, or when you're in between meetings, or when you're doing something, and I would just tweet, Lisa, okay, hey, this occurs to me, I'm going to need this at some point when it's time, and of course, research is not always linear, so it's constantly back and forth, and it was great to have her be able to then go look for either passages within articles we already had, or new articles that were related. So that often led back to the gathering phase, as Lisa, much to her probably annoyance, I kept saying, oh, we need more citations on that.
Always more.
Always more. Always more. And so then, now we're going to get Matt sick here with the switch to the writing phase. I use Scrivener, which is, that's this thing, which is a I guess you can use it for writing itself, but I use Scrivener for taking more substantive notes about the structure of the essay and that sort of thing. So Scrivener was one of the word processors that I used. I think that cost money. Forget it. Cost money.
It's like $45.
$45.
Yeah.
So it's not cheap, but and it's very flexible. But I don't produce my final version of my document in that. I still go back to Word for that, and here is that the article we were working on this summer, which I presented in Germany a few weeks ago, and this is the draft of that, screenshot of that. So as the writing happens, we continue to talk. I will often ask for more references and things like that to add, as I realize that I need to have more detail in some of the work that I'm doing. And then we come to citation, and that's where I go back to Zotero. And what's one of the nice things about Mendeley is that you can have your entire Zotero library in it. It doesn't go back and forth. I mean, it's not a reciprocal relationship there, but it is. You can see all your references in Zotero. And so maybe you can talk a minute about how I asked you to bring all those references we had in Mendeley.
Yeah, we took all of our references from Mendeley, imported them into Zotero, and it was, for the most part, an easy and quick process, but some of the formatting of the words got jumbled, in the citations in the right-hand pane.
Yeah, so we had to go do some cleaning of that. That's what it looks like in the panel of the web browser with our shared group here on Plato Speedo and some of the text that we had there. And then this is the screenshot of what happens when you actually cite the document. And the reason why I like this, and this is an advantage also over Mendeley, is because I do footnote citations, and in those citations I often have to identify the page number on which that appears, and so I can do that very easily here by adding it in that window, and then you can go back and edit it, which is really nice. That's why I like Zotero. Here is the citation right here with the page number there in the footnote, which is very all well and good. And when you do that with Mendeley, you get this kind of thing. So this is a problem with the plug-in with Mendeley in Word. It's a known problem that they're probably dealing with. But, I got to get stuff out, and I can't have hypertext in my footnotes. This is really keeping me from almost going fully over to Mendeley completely. So when they get that worked out, I mean, it's not even a 1.0 version yet, so it's still being processed. But I've been a little frustrated with this for over a year, seeing the possibilities that this had for collaborative research in this way, and not being able to really do all the things I want. So that's the research circle, and this is a published article back in Mendeley, ready for other people to look at it and annotate it, and hopefully contribute to the ongoing scholarly conversation that is happening on Plato's Dialogues. But this whole process couldn't have been nearly as effective and dynamic as it was without an awesome research assistant like Lisa. So I want to publicly thank you for all your work. It's been great.
What did Scrivener get you?
Yeah, Scrivener.
Like
can see this, what I found is that the ability to take, over here you can put little notes in here and organize them in almost like an outlining way. So I use it kind of like I'm starting to use it as an outliner. This is a new aspect. This used to be done in a notebook, a physical notebook. Taking notes. But what I found is, what's great is that I can have this window open, my Evernote window open for my notes, and the PDF document. You need 2 screens or a big screen. And I can use this thing for, this is the structure of the paper. This is one chapter, or not chapter, but one section is going to be on, Socratic habits, and now I have all that there, and I know that somehow that's going to be either a subsection of the paper.
Here's another little thing about Scrivener. It's a great irony of Word that nobody really ever talks about, which is it treats a text like a scroll, a linear scroll, right? One of our original literacy technologies from like thousands of years ago. And that's not how we teach writing today. We don't teach, writing as a one long linear document. And so what Scrivener allows you to do is think about chunks of ideas and move things around. And we discourage students often from starting with the introduction. But when they get into Word, they got to start with the introduction because they're at the top of the scroll. And so we can set up like a structure.
So for this, this is going to be the kind of outline, and then I have these, sub-documents. If you clicked on that, you would see them all lined up. But then I can also just take that and put it down, or say, I want to have something about this theme, the theme of the sea, add that into underneath that section. It's very dynamic that way. So I enjoy
The
that.
metaphor here is out of script writing. This is largely used by Hollywood types who are writing scripts and scenes, right? And working in a modular way, and then combining it at the end with some kind of a linear narrative. So
that has
pretty
that.
powerful.
It seems like it has added a dimension to my prepping of writing. Has made some things easier, because actually you can just obviously write certain sections right in there and then bring it.
Are there any collaborative capabilities with Scrivener, where if you're co-authoring with someone else, where you could?
Stuart? That's a good idea. That's a good thought. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't think there are.
Yeah.
It'd be great, like a Google Doc kind of.
Yeah,
They
that'd
don't
be awesome.
talk about that in any of their advertising
Yeah,
or
right.
demos. So
And that's the other thing. One of the things that is interesting and important about this whole process is the public and the private aspect. So one of the things that is great is to be able to see Lisa's notes in the Mendeley, but I'm realizing, the fact that I had my own notes in Evernote that were, just mine, even though you can share notes through Evernote, that was important. I mean, there are moments when you need the privateness of your own thoughts and your own ideas, and so you need to be able to balance that in some ways.
I like how this kind of troubles the relationship between the research assistant and the researcher, which I think the sciences do a much better job of handling with multiple authorship. I've had research assistants for years, but the relationship's never been very tight. It's like, find me something in the library, maybe send me an abstract. But you guys are basically, from what I can tell, you're co-writing on some level.
Yeah.
That the research assistant space and the writer space are the same spaces. And I think that's then going to pressure us in a good way to say, actually this is sort of a co-author. I mean, you said yourself you probably couldn't have done this, in fact, without
it. In the time that
I know with the iPad study, I couldn't have done it without getting data transcribed, moved into these kinds of environments where I can do coding. And we've never really talked about, in the writing process, we never really talk about access and resources as important as they are, maybe the most important thing. And access and resources are everything to this. Yeah.
It was a really incredible opportunity for me to see the writing and research process, especially as I'm writing my own thesis for the fall. And first we started by looking at the community of scholars and what everyone else was saying about the Phaedo, and looked at it as, are these people in agreement with us? Are we going to be against what they're saying? And then from there we kept gathering more and more articles, and so I got very familiar with the community of what other people were saying. But a key part in the process of writing that I didn't think about before was when you went back and you just looked at the Fido after we took all the notes on everybody else and did your own week of intensive writing. And the writing and the research really changed shape during that week. I was pretty astonished by the direction. The general direction was the same, but the specifics of your own voice, as distinguished from everyone else's voice that I had been reading and writing about, was really incredible. And now I'll integrate into my own research that week or month of really just being with myself and the text, apart from everyone else's voices.
Yes, I think that I appreciate your comments, sir. I think that's something, every time I present and talk about blogging, talk about new technology, talk about, I always get the comment, well, students are not learning how to read, everybody's scraping, scanning, all this stuff. And, there's some of that going on, but I think that the point that you made just now about the importance for me as a scholar and for students also to take that time to return back to that text, to read it slowly, with now enriched by all of the work that we did. And then, from my perspective, that week was very much, for me, about rereading the dialogue with new eyes, but then also having this resource, you as a resource, for, somebody said this and was talking about this, and they had some comment about this word, and now I need to remember where that was. Oh, let me tweet Lisa. She'll remember it, and that's what that Twitter exchange in the middle was kind of that. And she, within, I don't know if you see the time, it was like 15 minutes of a conversation there, but it was pretty intense in terms of the kind. Look what she's giving me here. Look, she's referring to specific things. This idea about waking from the dream of philosophy was talked about by Ruchnick. Here's the page number. Bolton also mentions it. I mean, you don't get that kind of resources from from computers, right? I mean, we get that because you did the work of reading those things and summarizing those things, and so you became a real resource for my work there.
Well, this finally makes visible the always invisible process of scholars. So like in the sciences, what do you do? How do you train somebody? There's an apprenticeship model. They go into the lab. They see how to write a grant. They see how to set up an experiment. They get a little piece of it for their thesis. And there's a way to learn from others. But in the humanities, we've never been able to do that. We don't teach people how to do this stuff because this stuff is never visible in any kind of way like it is now.
And I think in the humanities too, and one of the interesting things about being associate dean for liberal arts is liberal arts includes humanities and the social sciences. As you mentioned, Stuart, the social sciences are very good at this collaborative kind of research. But in the humanities, we do a very good job of theorizing a critique of authorship, a critique of the domination of certain kinds of authorial authority and those kinds of things. But in the end, we are about the cult of personality, about writing books that have ourselves as authors. That's how we get tenure. That's how we, that's the model of the mode of success. Now, I think over time that's going to change, but I don't want to be misunderstood to stand here as associate dean in the college saying that it's changing right now. You still have to write your books if you want tenure.
But even how do you teach? But even how do you teach people to write a book?
Right.
Like you have a better sense now.
Yeah.
Of like
right. Exactly.
how to do scholarly work. Something we've never been able to teach people.
Yeah. And also a better sense of how to use the tools available.
Yeah.
As Chris mentioned, I was really not on Twitter before this process, so I had a couple embarrassing platonic tweets to the whole world. All the time. It continued throughout the entire process. And I had to learn how to use Mendeley at first, which took a while to get familiar with that. But Chris was really patient and gave me, 1 or 2 weeks to just play around with the different tools that we were using, and it has shown me how much more powerful my research process can be from here on out.
And I think that a week or so, it wasn't 2 weeks, I don't think, you learned pretty quickly, but that time of learning, of technical learning, paid off, enormously in the end in those, as the deadline for the presentation of the paper started bearing down upon me, I knew that, you were an awesome resource. Plus, we had created this great resource together, these collected, documents with notes and everything.
Did you go back and archive the Twitter feed?
No, this was a direct message, so direct messages, so I still have those on my phone. But that's a good, and I said, oh, I think I still have that conversation on my phone. Now let me pull it, a screenshot of it. So no, I didn't have the tweets. We don't have the tweets. So.
But I think our direct messages went away after a month, where May was gone when June came around. But I had, I didn't set this up, but Twitter just sent the messages to my email. So I saved all of those under a folder just in case I had to go back to reference a specific page number that Chris needed.
Yeah, but this came in the middle of a conversation here, but it was, 11 o'clock, and now by 11:15, I was probably in a meeting and was getting these tweets that said, okay, look at these sections of things. So it's pretty awesome. Mark.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do you know if that's the only occurrence of a laugh out loud at the end of a sentence about KBS?
I think maybe in the history of literature right there. Yeah.
I can give some
Yeah, there's
context
something
to
very
that.
above that is some witticism I did cut out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's in the paper, I think. How do you quote a tweet? I don't know exactly.
it was the same day that Chris was asking me to look at a lot of different articles at the same time. And so I was just responding, of course, certainly, and I said, I think I'm sounding like, him in the dialogue or whatever, and he's corrected me, it was the wrong character.
Yeah. So that's right. Well, right. Well, you can get into an esoteric, discussion about Socrates and the fact that he had all these yes people who could sing, of course, yes, and that's what you were saying.
Kind of how I felt.
And one of the points in the paper was that Cabies was doing that a lot. So see, inside jokes come when it's geeky.
At least that one wasn't public, because that would have been really embarrassing.
No, it was good. Yeah.
I think one of the things I appreciate about this, the tools change all the time, but the fact that you guys are using tools like Twitter and Scrivener?
Scrivener, yeah.
Scrivener, that were developed for completely other purposes, for things like that. It makes me wonder about how we plan out sessions like the dating game or something like that. I mean, this applies not just to scholarly research, but also course design and media production, that sort of thing as well.
Well, one thing I wanted to go off on your introduction on Play is the fact that, okay, how did Scrivener come into my workflow? Well, we're doing a research group in the liberal arts, and I got faculty playing with different kinds of tools with the iPad and other things that Helen. And somebody, Daniel Tripp, said, Scrivener is awesome, you got to check this out. And my attitude was, okay, let me play with it and see. And in fact, this first iteration was just playing with it to see if it could help me. And it seems to have. I'm using it now in the next chapter of this book, which is, but that willingness to play is important, and I think we need to cultivate that in ourselves and in our students. But the other thing is, and this is sort of a subtext to the dating game issue, is I think we need to figure out how to be okay, and I'm not there yet intellectually and psychologically, with the fact that it's a bunch of different tools. I mean, I got Evernote, and I've got Twitter, and I've got 3 different citation things with citations in each one, and it's not healthy for my anal retentive tendencies. I don't like it. But yet, I'm kind of starting to think that, now with Google Plus coming, and Facebook, and Twitter, what do you do? Where are you going to go? But maybe it's not about, buying into one thing and just sticking with that. Maybe it's just a constant openness to the new and openness to playing with. And what does it mean to be, to have the skills to succeed in that? Well, you have to have imagination. You have to have play. You have to have open to new resources, new ideas. You have to realize things that are going to fail and go back to things you know. I mean, and you have to balance the play with getting stuff done with tools that you can rely on. So there's all kinds of stuff. I'm trying to settle into a space that isn't just, I need to get it all in one spot. I need to archive it all in one place that I have full control over. I think somehow the technology is teaching me that model of control is changing.
Yeah, we've never had it, right? So the messy,
we never had it, right?
The messy desk, right? I mean, the sticky note is as powerful as it is, precisely because it helps us organize the sort of unorganized.
Right.
And some people whose offices are neat more have the appearance of that than can they really put their finger on something so quickly.
Another note on openness. I was traveling a lot during the beginning months of the research. And so, and I know you were traveling as well. And because everything was online and accessible that way, I think there was room for more creativity. So if I saw something while I was traveling or was reading something somewhere else, I could integrate it into my thought process and still communicate it, even though we weren't in the same office at the same time.
I would often ask, is she going back and forth? The biggest worry was you tweeting while you were driving. So, not that you ever did. Yeah, I mean, that was what's very interesting. I mean, we didn't need to be here in Petit to get the text for the most part that we wanted. I mean, you had access from Philadelphia to get the PDFs for sure, and so every so often now my office happens to be right there in Sparks, so I could run over for a book. But increasingly, the book is feeling like a container that needs to be liberated, and allow us to get at them in a more dynamic way. I think I'm getting the high sign that people have time for lunch, so I better stop. So thank you.